Happy Monday. Welcome to the show. It is Sandy and Shawn. Sandy Clough is off today. I'm Shawn Drotar. We're live from Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit at Dove Valley. The man on my left there, Cody Roark. Of course, you catch him on Mile High Sports, all of our Denver Broncos content, the host of the Locked On Broncos podcast. And Cody, they saw you as we came on with the binoculars on because you are looking for the same thing apparently the Broncos are.
Yeah, searching for safeties. Who's all out here? What's that position group look like? Obviously, news of the morning. Right before practice, we got the notification the Broncos plan to release safety Caden Sterns. A little bit of a surprising move, honestly. Something we didn't expect. Obviously, spent all of last year on injured reserve, had reconstructive patellar tendon surgery, and has been making progress. Has been doing a good job with his recovery. And Sean Payton even said last week, we got to be smart with how we acclimate him and bring him back. Individual drills, he's been doing good. Last week, he saw some work at 7-on-7. And so, considering the Broncos right now already have an injury to Brandon Jones with a hamstring, this was a shocking move from Denver's depth standpoint just because their depth is already questionable. So, it must mean that, hey, they really like J.L. Skinner. They really like Devin Key. Those guys have had a tremendous camp, but a little bit of a gamble because they're young and don't have a lot of experience, and the Broncos want to win. So, we'll find out a little bit more from Sean Payton here after practice about why they decided to do that.
And I was a Caden Sterns guy from the day the Broncos drafted him because at one point this was considered the best safety in the country when he ended up at Texas. And things just have not gone well health-wise. But when the news came out this morning, I have to be honest, I wasn't shocked. And I put on social media that I think it's actually time for a fresh start for both parties in this particular case because I get what you're saying with Brandon Jones being injured. PJ Locke has battled with injuries. Caden Sterns has battled injuries. Delarrin Turner-Yell started the year on the pup.
Yeah, he's still there.
And I think because we're looking at so many guys with injury histories, quite frankly, I think Sean Payton and the coaching staff were probably making a decision saying we have to have guys that we can count on for the whole year. And obviously there's no way to predict injuries in football. Eventually everyone gets hurt. But one of the best predictors of future injuries is past injuries. And Caden Sterns has had a lot of past injuries. It's been a challenge. I'm not surprised the Broncos made this move, even though you're right. It leaves them short. Skinner was good on Saturday in the sort of extended scrimmagey practice there. That's something to do with it. But also we have seen the clear devaluation of safeties. Justin Simmons still doesn't have a job. So you'd have to think that if you were looking for an upgrade from Caden Sterns with a veteran or something down the road after a couple of days, if the Broncos wanted to go that route this week, that's easy enough to do.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that, though.
I don't either, but the options are available.
Yeah, they paid all this money to Brandon Jones. PJ Locke's going to be a starter. He got a contract extension. So, financially, it doesn't make sense. Personnel-wise, it would, but then it's like, all right, are you bringing in Justin to come off the bench, which Justin doesn't, Justin's a starter. Justin's not a guy that should ever come off the bench for any team at this point. But I don't know. It's very, very curious. I'm very curious to see what the vision is for the position overall. Obviously, as we're out here this morning, defensive back room in general does have some injuries. Talk about Brandon Jones, even cornerback Levi Wallace is out here.
Right,
suffered a hamstring injury. Yeah, he suffered a hamstring injury on Saturday. So we'll figure out what the timeline is for him there. But you're getting an opportunity to get more looks, at safety, Devin Key, J.L. Skinner, Tanner McAllister, Keidron Smith. Those guys are all getting some looks at that position at corner. It means more Riley Moss, Damari Mathis, who've had a pretty good camp. And then obviously maybe seeing some of these other guys like Art Green get more reps at this point. It's just a little bit of a loaded room right now and obviously some question marks, but it's young, unproven talent and we'll see how things, kind of pan out here going forward. But very curious to see what kind of transpires during today's practice. As we all know, the team's going to prepare for Sunday's preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. So a lot of moving pieces right now, and we'll have to see how it kind of formulates.
Yeah, obviously a lot going on in the Broncos defensive backfield. We'll talk more about that as the show goes along, but let's turn our attention to the quarterbacks, of course, for a bit. We'll check in on that. Bo Nix's ascension continues to go along the path, I think, that, shouldn't say everyone expected. I expected. Sandy expected. You expected. People who never called this quarterback competition expected because it never was and still isn't a quarterback competition. It is purely a matter of time until Bo Nix takes that role. And again, it felt like this weekend he took another step towards being the week one starter.
Yeah, the way that they rotated the reps, it was very interesting. It's like a basketball game. Whoever wins the tip-off in the first quarter, okay, they're going to get the ball to start the fourth quarter, of play. So basically, it was Jarrett getting the first reps on the first overall team session. And then the second and third team sessions, it was Bo getting reps with the first team offense. And then in the end of game situation, need to drive, need a touchdown, down 6. there was Jarrett Stidham who got to start with the ones in that period, Bo with the second unit after that. But it's very clear now, really, that it is Bo and Jarrett primarily in the driver's seat here in terms of the reps they're getting. You've seen Zach Wilson's reps kind of not taken away, but the emphasis hasn't been on him. It's been on these two guys. It's going to be that way, I think, for the first 2 weeks of the preseason. Then I think we'll have Sean Payton make his decision.
Yeah, I think when you look at that and it goes down to Stidham and Nix and it seems to be quote unquote neck and neck, when we all know it's going to end up with Bo Nix as the starter, then the question really for Sean Payton isn't about who to start per se. We know what that's going to be in the end. The question now is about how does it help or hurt Bo Nix to either hold him out or put him in right off the get-go?
I mean, I don't think it'll hurt him. I don't
either.
You know, I think if he plays, you live with it. Like if you start Bo week one, like you're going to live with the struggles. Like if he struggles, you need to live with it. You need to let him grow through it. Let him, if he has a game where he throws 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown and the Broncos lose, it's not the end of the world. It's more so, hey, all right, this is where he's at. What does he do the next week? Does he rebound? Does he bounce back? Like we live in such a microwave society now. And this is not just for young quarterbacks; it's for every quarterback in the NFL. But you know, if you're struggling, you know, for a game or a 2-game stretch, it's like, oh, this guy's not it. Like that's not the evaluation. Like we don't live in Madden. You can't just cut a guy or move on. Like you got to let someone go through the growing pains, make mistakes, learn along the way, and then just keep pushing forward. Like you want to just see an upward trend in growth, right? On a week-to-week basis, there are going to be mistakes, and I think that's the thing that drives me nuts about quarterback competitions and, you know, young guys who are at quarterback is because fan bases are so impatient with the notion that, well, this guy can't make a mistake. If he makes a mistake, he's a bust. That's got to get out of people's vernacular because this is a game that's played 11 on 11. You're going against 11 other pieces that are trying to counter what you're trying to do, and it's played at the fastest speed possible in the most physical contact sport there is at the professional level, and then you're going to see the outcomes. Like, you're going to make mistakes. Like, embrace it. Yeah, mistakes suck, but you want the quarterback to continue to learn. You have to fall forward.
Right, and to a certain extent, you have to make mistakes to learn what not to do. Look, Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player on earth, yet a basketball reference. He makes multiple turnovers a game. 100%. He takes a couple shots he shouldn't have taken. Every single game. Nobody says that. And on top of that, in this competition, when you think about Jarrett Stidham in particular, I think it's important to note, you know, you said, what if Bo Nix throws a touchdown and 2 picks in Seattle? What tells me that Jarrett Stidham wouldn't? This isn't Joe Flacco or Teddy Bridgewater. And we're talking about guys the Broncos fans don't have a lot of good memories of, or Russell Wilson. But those guys at least had significant track records of success in their career. Jarrett Stidham doesn't. So this assumption that somehow because Stidham would start over Nix, that he'd be great by default, there's no reason to believe that either. Stidham, with only 4 starts in his career, will still be making the same mistakes Nix will.
Yeah, and I would even say, too, other starting quarterbacks. Justin Herbert makes mistakes.
Sure.
Patrick Mahomes makes mistakes, you know, but luckily he's got a good enough team around him. And so sometimes
and it's less frequent, but yes.
I mean, they can make a ton of mistakes in a game and still find a way to win. Like their margin for error is much bigger than anybody else's, I would say. But it's because they have a good defense. They have a good scheme. They have, you know, a terrific quarterback. Like, yeah, but you're going to see that. What are we? We're on day 11 of training camp, and I'm just already annoyed on social media. It's to the point. I'm just ready for this whole thing to be over with so we can get to the season where everything actually matters. Because every day is literally just a talking point. Every day is a talking point, and it's like, hey, what's the narrative today? It's like, nah, let's use the whole body of work versus like, okay, hey, this guy looked good today. Okay, can he bounce back tomorrow? Versus like, oh, this guy had a bad day. It means he's terrible. Cut him, release him, bust. I hate this. Social media pisses me off. I'm over it.
I'm actually impressed with your patience, sir, because I was done with it before training camp even started.
Well,
with
then you get
stuff.
Then you get the weird. Then you get some weirdos in the comments that literally don't even know.
Never read the comments.
I like reading the comments.
Don't read the comments.
I respond to the people that are kind, you know, and I want to get snarky with some of the people who aren't so.
Never read the comments.
But there are a lot of know nothing nobodies out there that don't watch practice at all, but have like the boldest takes. And it's like, watch the whole body of work versus just one play.
Well, there's a reason the Denver Broncos do not yet have a depth chart with anybody on it yet, because they're still waiting for the body of work.
And
Cody
it's
Roark
coming.
is out there.
The unofficial depth chart is coming this week, but don't read into it. Literally, it's nothing. It's not going to be the order in which things are at. So we're getting ahead of the curve here and telling you, hey, it's going to release this week before the preseason game.
Because they have to tell somebody who's starting.
They're
that's
mandated
just how it
by
goes.
the league to be able to throw it out there. And you're going to see a combination of these position battles where it's going to say, let's say, for example, quarterback. It's going to say Jarrett Stidham or Bo
Yeah.
Nix or Zach Wilson. It's going to come out with that versus it being 1, 2, or 3. It's going to be or.
Right, which is the way of getting around the mandate of it. So it doesn't mean anything yet. But the practices do in the longer term. Cody Roark's the guy to pay attention for all of that. And they're about to blow one of those horns that says it's time for you to go check something out. So we're going to let you go. Thanks so much for the insight. And we'll talk about more about this tomorrow. Thanks, Cody. You can make sure you give Cody a follow, Cody Roark NFL on social. But he does respond, apparently. He reads the comments, but only if you're nice. So keep that in mind. Be nice. So, like we have been, of course, all training camp, a little bit of team coverage for you. We do that at Mile High Sports. We'll bring everybody to bear because more opinions, more thoughts, more perspectives, always better. Joining us, of course, you know him, of course, out here with Cody, out here with me, of course, host of the Locked On Rockies postcast. That is jumping on the proverbial grenade. We can set that aside for the moment. But Anilo Piro sits down, and now we're starting to get more, even when it is just shells out here at practice, starting to look a little bit more like football as we have the first game week coming up of the 2024 Broncos season.
Yeah, you know, my energy is a little bit like Cody's, where I'm happy to be out here for training camp, but I am like looking for something to chew on, right? And that's where I get excited for the preseason game because, you know, I forget who I was listening to. It may have been some local media. I don't think national media is really talking about the Broncos, but they bring up the good point as it pertains to the QB situation, right? Because I don't think it's a competition much like you, Shawn. But let's take someone like Zach Wilson, for instance. I don't think you understand what you have in Zach Wilson until you let him play in a preseason game because he's not built to thrive in 7-on-7. He's a gunslinger, an improviser.
And can I give you a note about that too? Because I want to get ahead of that with Zach Wilson. Here's the thing. Broncos kind of don't want to anyway. Because if look, Zach Wilson is in the last year of his rookie deal. And the Broncos brought him in for one reason, not to start him. Okay. Anybody said they brought him in to start him? Sorry, but I hate to be so mean about it, but you don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't the intent. This was the kind of thing that Bill Parcells used to do. That Sean Payton, of course, is basically a mini-me of Bill Parcells. The idea of grabbing a guy that has starting experience, was a high draft pick, figure there's a bit of a pedigree there. Let's bring him in. Let's give him a new look. Let's see what we can do with him. And the truth of the matter is if the Broncos are doing well with Zach Wilson and bringing him along, they don't really need to advertise that to the rest of the league because the Broncos are going to have all three quarterbacks. Wilson is going to be one of those guys that this year the rule changes. You can elevate your third quarterback every single game. And so, and he doesn't count against the roster. You don't have to expose him to whatever. It's just basically everyone understands with quarterback injuries now, you probably need three. So the Broncos have Zach Wilson earmarked to be the number 3 guy with the idea next year that they could sign either Stidham or Wilson to be the longer-term backup to Bo Nix.
Right.
Ideally, given his age, it would be Wilson, who's only a couple months older than Nix, despite the fact he's been in the league for a while. So the Broncos don't need to advertise if things are going well with Zach Wilson. As a matter of fact, they probably don't want to at all, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a statement of what his future is considered with the Broncos.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And, you know, before we hit a break here, the one thing that I found myself not understanding is why is Jarrett Stidham just automatically considered to be this veteran guy? We do know that Zach Wilson has started something like 30-something odd games in
Stidham's
the NFL.
At 4. Including the last 2 of last year.
And this preconceived notion that Jarrett Stidham is just like this stout veteran that, you know, can come in and fill these gaps. Like Zach Wilson, by all technicality, is the more veteran and more experienced quarterback compared to
a great deal. Stidham's only appeared in 16 games total. Wilson started more than double that.
Yeah, so we'll see how it shakes out. I think that's going to be a lot to chew on, or that's going to be the big takeaway to chew on. Rather from the first preseason game here for the Denver Broncos. And also, let's see how the safety room shapes out with no more Caden Sterns on the roster.
Yeah, that's obviously a fascinating move for the Broncos. I don't find it shocking. I find it somewhat surprising, but the injuries became very, very difficult, as our old friend Chad Brown jokes about. The best ability in the NFL is availability. And even though it is of no fault of his own, Caden Sterns simply hasn't had that. And for Sean Payton, looking at a team in which he's trying to rebuild it, maybe decides going forward, I just can't count on him. That's not his fault, but I've got to make a roster spot for someone that we hope we can. And that's the breaks, unfortunately, in sports. We will continue to talk more about that, more about the quarterbacks and everything going on with game week. It actually is on Sunday. Preseason begins for the Denver Broncos. We'll be back with more from Broncos Park at Dove Valley on Mile High Sports next. Welcome back to the show. Nate Lundy is here. Nate, you keep thinking we've been thinking all training camp that we were going to get a punt, and it seems like just that last bounce
really close.
It gets close where Riley Dixon keeps just knocking it right almost into our tent, but then that last bounce always just kicks back like it's supposed to, but we never quite get one.
It's basically why he gets paid 7 figures and we don't, because he's very good at making it stop once it comes down. But we are coming really close.
Yeah.
And if it happens, he owes us a new camera.
Well, I wonder if, we just have to make sure that we're not making him angry, because presumably he could change his mind.
Who do I file that with? Like, if it's an insurance claim, do I take that up directly with him? Do I need to talk to the Walton Penners?
Do I look like a lawyer? Do I look like I would know that?
Something?
Why would I know that?
Is that something that I can, I just need to know what path I need to go if that winds up happening.
With my luck, that would be one of those things that insurance is like, you were on a practice field, so whatever happens. It's too bad for you.
Do I get safe flight repairs, safe flight replace involved, or
just the glass on the camera breaks? Maybe.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I just need to understand if, in fact, Riley Dixon does send one and knocks our video camera over. I just want to know who I put the claim with.
I love that you're worried about in true head of Mile High Sports fashion.
That's going to be pretty.
The camera, you're concerned about the fact that it might hit you right in the beak is like that. Whatever. You can fix that. You got insurance for that, I guess. So
they've got
you got to protect the equipment there.
They've got the net up in front of us that the quarterbacks use to throw into.
They're trying to drop punts right into it.
And Dixon almost dropped that punt directly into the net. That was pretty impressive.
Well, I'll tell you what, we know on camp there are no other kickers, there are no other punters in camp. So I think we know those two guys have secure jobs, and that's probably the beginning and ending of our special teams discussion for the day.
Job. You just get to come out here, you hang out,
you talk with your buddies,
you practice long snapping, you're booting a football around. It's basically like every 8-year-old's dream.
Yeah. I mean, we watched, Andy Reid in the punt, pass, and kick, right? Going out there and punting. I mean, that's literally what kids wanted to do. And there you go.
Somebody needs to check his birth certificate, but whatever. All right. So you talk with Cody to kick things off this morning.
Right.
And in the midst of all of that, we get the breaking news that the Broncos have decided to continue to cause problems at the safety position.
Caden Sterns, the Broncos' 5th-round pick in 2021, at one point I mentioned with Cody, was the top high school safety in the country when he was then went to Texas. But injuries have derailed him. The Broncos reportedly now will release him if they cannot trade him today. And that's the kind of thing when you hear they expect to release somebody. That is the heads up to all the other teams. We're going to, if you want him, you should give us a call real quick and see if you want to give us, I don't know, conditional
that just
7th.
Seems like a really odd technique.
Well, it's a little desperate.
I'm not going to lie. It seems odd to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to release him. Anybody want him? Like, that's not a call you can make ahead of time. You can't just there's got to be this is what I envision. There's like a group chat amongst all the GMs where they're just like, hey, anybody want Sterns? And then you just you set it up like
the 3 dots.
It's like a poll question on Twitter.
There you go.
And you just wait to see who votes yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want him? Anybody want him? Anybody? Bueller? No? Okay, fine. How can you not just do that in a group chat? Why do you feel the need to put it out there through the various NFL reporters to see if somebody steps up?
Well, because maybe somebody else that it would inform the GM or could tell the GM what to do maybe sees it and then gets excited.
So that you can have a conditional 7th-round pick?
It's better than nothing. The Broncos don't want to give him away for nothing if they can help it. But the problem is, Nate, he missed all last season with an injury. He only had 5 starts in 2022.
Yes.
Over the course of his career, he has started 20 out of a possible 51 games.
Who
appeared
wants
in
that?
20. So that's 39%. And even though the talent is pretty enticing, you can't help if you can't get on the field. And when you talk about the Broncos safeties thus far, Brandon Jones is already out, who they signed as a free agent. He's out for a week or two with hamstrings, by the way.
And that's a training camp thing.
Right.
We talked about this before. That is somebody just going, okay, we're going to play it safe. It's not like his hamstring is about to fall off the bone.
You say that.
So,
hopefully not.
Well, I don't believe that it is. I believe this is a training camp injury.
Hamstring also takes out Levi Wallace, the corner that looked like he was about to lock down the starting. Maybe he already still has. Opposite Pat Surtain.
I think he's locked it down.
Wallace suffers a hamstring injury in the scrimmage on Saturday and is currently out. But JL Skinner had an opportunity, and this I think really steered it. JL Skinner looked really good, had an opportunity to step up, looked good.
Yes.
The Broncos like his ability as well. And I think when you're looking at guys that PJ Locke has had an injury history in this brief time with the Broncos. Jones has had one in his time with the Broncos and previously before the Broncos, which is why Jones was available.
Right.
Delaire Turner-Yell is on the pup. Caden Sterns, I think, because of his injury history, just became too much of a risk for the Broncos. They want to find some people that haven't had injuries in the past because that's the most likely thing to give you a tip that they reoccur. And so I think Sterns kind of gets caught in there.
Yes.
And I think it's a fresh start. It's a good chance for both. There might be a team out of that would look at Sterns in the
draft process. That's why I find what happened today is such a joke.
If somebody wanted him, it would have been easy enough to find out by now.
You would have found somebody by now. Like, just release.
You're just throwing it dark.
Release the man and let him go try to find that fresh start that he may be able to get. And hopefully he stays healthy. I wish nothing but the best for Sterns. The same thing. I don't want anybody's professional career to be derailed by recurring injuries. But at the end of the day, if you are the Broncos and you have made this decision, don't you think the other 31 GMs are like, we're not gonna give you a pick for him?
Justin Simmons is still out there.
Like,
they can just sign him. I mean,
right. It's just I don't
who's
know.
Going to be?
It's just
no
to me
Sterns,
is
but yeah, who's going to be diving all over trying to trade for?
I find it odd.
Sterns.
You're going to play the game. I don't care. Play the game.
You have to do it.
The professional game. Play it all you want. It's fine. I get it. I just find it as a fan and as somebody to sit here to talk about it today, odd. And somewhat useless.
The odds are low, but yeah, you go ahead and you throw the dart and you hope that maybe it's the bullseye and somebody wants to give you something for it. The Broncos are definitely in a place in their rebuild in which every single pick that you can acquire is worth something. So if they can get anything at all, I think they'd be happy to do it.
Sure.
But
I understand
at this point,
that.
You're right. I would be stunned if anybody did. You're probably just releasing him at the end of the day today. And Sterns, by doing that, at least, you give Sterns' agent the opportunity to start calling around today and make deals too, even though Sterns has not technically been released. That's the other part of the game is you let his agent start making some of those calls. So the Broncos move on from Sterns, but safety is an interesting spot because after moving on from Justin Simmons, you have Brandon Jones. You hope the injury doesn't linger, but you are talking about a guy that's had injuries again in Jones. PJ Locke now appears to be the clear starter opposite of Brandon Jones on the other side, which is how he finished last year as the starter. And then they seem to be very confident with Skinner. And then there's some other guys that are available as backup safeties. But the other thing I briefly talked about with Cody, when you're thinking about, wow, Caden Sterns had ability. Well, he did, and he does, and I hope it all works out. At the same time, the safety position has been so dramatically devalued. We just talked about Justin Simmons doesn't have a job. He's the NFL's leading interceptor since he came into the league. If you're looking for a backup safety, which is apparently what the Broncos are looking for, if you don't have one on your roster, the odds are you're going to be able to have your pick of a bunch of backup safeties with multiple different kinds of experience if you want, because right now there's sort of the position that as running back was a couple years ago, that they kind of end up being fungible to teams. And so there's a lot of options sitting out there now, and there will be even more as training camp goes along. So for the Broncos, I think tough luck for Caden Sterns. Wish him the best, but it does feel like maybe at this time, fresh start for both parties makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that it is what makes sense. And I think it can wind up making sense for a lot of players. I think one of the reasons why it stands out so much to us is because of the drop-off that is taking place with Justin Simmons.
You were Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson at the beginning of last year, and now you're Brandon Jones and PJ Locke, and it feels like a downgrade.
And of course it feels like a downgrade, because until you see the performance at that kind of a level, it's going to be a downgrade. It is a downgrade until you prove otherwise.
Right.
Period. End of story. I'll give you a great example. Let's go to Green Bay, Wisconsin for a second. It was a downgrade to Jordan Love until he proved otherwise.
Right.
And he did prove it. He proved it last year. He proved that he can be their quarterback. And so until you see it, you don't know it. You have to run a certain amount on faith. You have to believe in what Sean Payton sees or George Payton sees or the coordinators or whomever we want to break it down with. You have to ultimately believe that they have the eyes for it that we don't. And I'll be the first person to admit, I don't have it.
Not a football scout.
No.
Not your thing.
It's not what I do.
Right.
I sit and point fingers and I make snarky comments on Twitter. That's what I do. I'm not an analyst.
But the point that you make, Nate, I think is maybe the best way to summarize the Broncos in general, right? There's the belief that there is a lot of interesting young talent here that may end up bubbling up to the surface, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes.
But you've brought up the same thing that I've kind of alluded to before as well. That's all well and good. but projection tends to get coaches fired. Sean Payton won't because he gets $20 million a year and he's got multiple years
Yeah,
left.
he's got guaranteed money.
But
coming. He's not going anywhere.
when you're projecting, that's always a risk. Because one, not everybody is going to hit what their projected peak is, and two, very rarely, if ever, do multiple players all hit.
You're not going to
peak.
bat 1,000.
No, that is, and batting 1,000. I was about to say this is what the Colorado Rockies do. They grab a bunch of guys and go, well, they'll all be all stars. And then surprised when they're not. It doesn't work that way. The Broncos understand that, and there is a lot of interesting talent on this team. But the idea that all of them will all sort of rise up simultaneously and maybe get to their peak this season is probably too big a jump. And that's why you and I are a little bearish on their chances.
Well, exactly. But as a quick comment, that tackling dummy right there in front of us has the same IQ as the Rockies front office. Beyond that, I think that Sean Payton has an IQ for it. I think he has coaches and scouts that can keep an eye on the players that are going to matter. And I think that ultimately some of these guys will bubble up. I think the advantage that they have is because the expectations are low for a win total,
right?
For all of those things. I think because the expectations are low, they can actually take chances that other teams can't. If we were to look at, I know we talked on Friday a lot about Justin Herbert's plantar fasciitis, okay? And I think that the Chargers are in a position where they can't necessarily roll as many dice as the Broncos can, because the Chargers coming into this season have very much an expectation of being able to get one of the AFC's wildcard positions. That is the expectation, I believe, for that franchise and for the fan base, albeit whatever that fan base is when it comes to the Chargers. But with the Broncos, there isn't that expectation. I know that Ryan Harris sat here on day one of camp and told us, or day two of camp, and told us this idea that that success is the playoffs.
Right.
I love you, Ryan, but BS. That's not what it is this season. It isn't.
No.
That's not what this team is going to be capable of doing, and you got to be able to accept that as a fan base. And because of that, you can take chances at positions, including things like Jones and Locke, and recognizing that you don't have Simmons and you're cutting Sterns. You can take chances at that position because what you do at that position, Shawn, is not going to make a difference on whether you are a wild card team or not.
Right. And sometimes those low expectations, when the team at least is on the same page, right? The Broncos for much of the last decade have been a little surprised that they weren't a playoff contender, even though a lot of people viewing like you and I have said, like, well, no, they've never been close to the playoff contender. The roster isn't there. But once you accept your reality there, you're right. It gives you flexibility and it gives you a bit of space to, explore a little bit. And that can be healthy too, because that's when talent can bubble up when you're looking at a bunch of guys. So we'll talk about that quarterback position as well. But of course, all training camp long. And maybe you're planning a big to-do this weekend. What big is going to be, great weather. So it's going to be the summer. You're planning a big to-do. Maybe it's even for the preseason game coming up. And you don't want to cook. Well, we got your spot.
Yeah,
right
we
here.
got you covered with Rolling Smoke Barbecue and our friends in all their locations. And that is one of the things that they really specialize in, is that catering, that takeout that you can do when you're putting together a party. As we like to talk about, it doesn't matter whether you've got 20 people or 120 people. Rolling Smoke can take care of you. All you got to do is give them a shout. Let them know what you're doing. They'll even walk you through some of the ordering process. They'll talk to you about, okay, tell me how many people you got, right? How many adults you got, how many kids we got, and how much, and they will sit there because they know how to be able to build that catering order perfectly for you. And the beauty is, wherever you are in town, you can go and pick it up, and you can do it conveniently. 4 locations for you that you can stop by from a brick and mortar standpoint. The first one was in the Stanley Marketplace in Aurora. That was where the first brick and mortar started for Terry and his crew. They then added the spot in Centennial at the corner of Dry Creek and University, right across the street from Arapahoe High School. Then added the Golden Mill as well, for those of you that are up snug to the Front Range. And then the newest one in Wheat Ridge. So you put all of those locations together, and you can pick up that catering order. But it's also, you can get one of those locations, just pop in and grab a bite to eat. That's all you need to be able to do. Sample this barbecue. And once you do, you are going to come back again and again. All 4 of those locations. Or if you are headed up to Red Rocks here as the season continues all the way through the first part of November, I don't know, maybe you're going to see Mount Joy this weekend. I don't know. Whatever it is. When you stop in there for Red Rocks for the show, go just a little bit early and take the walk up to the top, or if you're coming in from the top, it's right there, because Rolling Smoke has a location for you at Red Rocks as well. Find all the information, all the locations, the menu, and everything at RollingSmokeBBQ.com. And when you stop by, tell the crew that Nate and Shawn, Mile High Sports, sent you.
Well, we look at the quarterback position. Obviously, there was a scrimmage, at least, football-like substance occurring over here.
As I said, it was the Velveeta of scrimmages.
Yeah, so
it's kind of cheese. It's not really cheese.
But
it's not that you don't like it. It's just it's a cheese-like substance.
It looked more like football than anything we've seen out here at camp, though. And obviously, when you look at the quarterback situation, I refuse to call it a competition, haven't before, and I'm definitely not now. Zach Wilson ends up getting a little bit shorted there. Sean Payton said after the game, the scrimmage, that Wilson will have his chance. Of course, there's no need for Payton to tip any of his hand at this stage, but it's clearly down to Stidham and Nix. And now I'll pose the same question to you that I posed to Cody. This is not about, is Bo Nix your QB1? He is. It's just a matter of what week you do that, and everyone understands that. But in Jarrett Stidham's case, when did, and I'm not trying to pile on Jarrett Stidham, who is going to make a great deal of money in his career and have a very long career as a prepared backup where you can now make $7-8 million a year. Which is what Stidham is making to be the backup. And that's going to go well for him. But Jarrett Stidham is also a guy that has played in 16 NFL games and thrown 8 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. And I'm not sure why there's this assumption, well, you really need to start Jarrett Stidham because you need some stability. Jarrett Stidham's body of work isn't anywhere near Russell Wilson's or Joe Flacco's or Teddy Bridgewater's. For the Broncos have had these couple guys all before. Why is this idea that Stidham is some sort of stable option when there's been no indication of that being the case? He's on his, he's been on 3 teams and this is his 5th year.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the time of year that fans and even the media are looking for strings to grasp. They are looking for storylines. They're looking for things to be able to talk about. Because what happens when we start out our coverage on training camp on the beautiful Friday that we did, you got all kinds of storylines. Here we are now, 11 days?
Week 3, yeah.
11 days in, 10 days in. And how many more storylines do we have? And so you're trying to figure out some of this quarterback. Look, everybody in the NFL understands you need a decent backup quarterback because there aren't a whole lot of starters that manage to go through all 17 games.
Yeah, fewer and fewer every year, it seems.
That said, as we've talked about, what you need to be able to do is throw Bo into the deep end of the pool and let him go and let it happen and let him screw up and let him succeed and let all of those individual pieces happen, as Peyton Manning has said, by the way.
Right.
If you don't believe me, or you don't want to buy the coach speak,
ask Peyton and Eli.
Listen to one of the GOATs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Listen to the guys that have the Super Bowl rings. Listen to the guys that understand the position, who will tell you, you need to just jump in and make mistakes. And so I can fully respect what Sean Payton is doing right now. I really can. I want him to play whatever game he wants to play. And if that makes him feel better, or I don't know, gives him a little bit of a power trip, so be it. But at the end of the day, what this team needs to do is put number 10 out there on the field and let him play and let him stub his toe. And all of those things are what need to happen. Period. End of story. Yep. And if you've got, I don't give a damn who the backup quarterback is. No. I don't give a damn who is on the practice squad. What I care about, and what I think every Broncos fan cares about, if you want to boil all of this crap down, is 10 the guy? Right. Yes or no?
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's important to find out this year because, look, if he's not, and they don't hit that Vegas over-under of 5.5, they win 5 games. You have a top 7, maybe top 5, maybe even higher than that pick. You're going to need to do what the Arizona Cardinals did after they drafted Josh Rosen and realized, well, that didn't work. And they could have said, well, we're just going to keep trying it out because he was our first-round pick last year. But it was pretty obvious to them. They're like, nope, that's not the guy. So when they got a chance to pick Kyler Murray, that's exactly what they did. If Bo Nix is not the guy with the high pick you have next year and the quarterbacks that should be out, you look at Beck and Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, also, and who else around the country may be out. You will have to decide if Bo Nix is not the guy. You need to immediately turn the page. And here's the thing where it's no longer that big a deal anymore, Nate, because rookie quarterback contracts are such a bargain. Bo Nix on his rookie deal will still make roughly what Jarrett Stidham makes. So if in a year you find out that Bo Nix was not the guy, but you like his preparation, you like his professionalism, and Sean Payton goes, I'd still think he makes a nice backup. Fine. He's getting paid backup salary. Go pick another rookie quarterback then. You're okay, and you have cost protection for the next handful of years. You know exactly what the quarterback position is going to cost you. And that's one of the things right now in the NFL that's a fascinating spot for rebuilding teams. It's almost at the point for bang for your buck. You almost should spend your first-round pick on a quarterback every year if you're a bad team until you hit one, because even if you miss, the expense is now the same as a veteran backup. Even a guy like Stidham, who's only started 4 games in his career, and before he came to the Broncos, it was 2. And he's still got a 2-year, $10 million deal. So the sooner you start Nix, the more you can find out about him. I don't think it helps anything, and I don't think it helps Stidham, who we gave his career numbers. The second he has a bad start, the second he has anything, the fan base is going to clamor for Nix. It's probably better off to just go for it. And I think Sean Payton will. I think the quote-unquote competition is there because you don't want to just give a first-round pick that important a job by acclamation. I think you'd like to avoid that if you can. That said, the Bears are doing it.
The Bears have done it. The Panthers have done it.
Is anybody worried about it? The Texans did it last year. Worked out pretty good for them.
The Jets did it with Zach Wilson. I mean, I'm just like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with going, yeah, he's our starter.
Yeah, we picked him 12th overall. We're starting him. That's the plan.
He's our starter.
Yeah.
Next question.
And that basically is it. But they're going to wait.
Seems like such a no-brainer.
66 quarterbacks started a game last year. That's a new NFL record. We can do the quick math. There's 32 teams, right?
I was not one of them.
64. So in other words, NFL teams just slightly averaged three quarterbacks a year needing to start games.
Yeah.
The average was over 2 to get through the season. So, yeah, I think the idea of the 3 that the Broncos have makes sense. But, yeah, it's very obvious to me. You go Nix, Stidham, Wilson, and who knows how long Peyton will take before he makes that call. But we'll have a better idea at the end of this week when the Broncos take on the Colts in their first preseason game on Sunday, because we'll start to see not only how that's laid out, and I do expect Stidham to start that game, but if the 2 quarterbacks play comparatively, if Nix plays as well with the 2s as Stidham plays with the 1s, I think this time next week we'll be having a very, very different conversation quickly.
Yeah, I think we absolutely will. By the way, I would like to give a hat tip to Quinn Meinerz, who's out there right now, still with that big ass belly.
He's
hanging
been
out
doing that all camp.
I know he's been doing it all camp, but he's over on the sideline right now. He's just kind of like practicing his moves and stuff. Like, yeah. I don't want the Broncos yelling at me because I'm like reporting on stuff. He's just practicing. He's like practicing jumping out of his stance, but he's got that belly hanging out. That's one of my favorite things about this team right now. Quinn Meinerz. Well, he's one of my favorites.
He's also now, besides Pat Surtain, he's their best offensive player, and he's probably the second best player on the whole team overall. But yeah, going back on brand,
he's just fun.
He's got the belly sticking out. Maybe he's trying to avoid the nickname. Maybe he's going to bring it back. It's what $80 million does for you. A little bit of confidence in the frame. But yeah, I like it too. And this kind of camp has really been interesting in that regard, because especially for a Sean Payton camp, it is both relaxed,
yes,
and highly efficient. And that's good, because there has been sort of the argument that, the camp's been a little subdued, but in part that's because it's been very businesslike.
Yeah.
And I think if you're talking about what Sean Payton's team will look like, first year was difficult to say. Now you're seeing there is some room for player expression. This isn't Tom Coughlin, for example, telling people, never sit on your helmets or whatever. There's some room for expression. And at the same time, when you get in between the lines, we expect professionalism, we expect all the extras. And I think setting that, for lack of a better term, corporate culture for the players is a good thing when you have a rebuilding team, because you start having a set of expectations that when everyone comes to the building, they know what they need to do.
Correct.
And that's part of this rebuild too, not just acquiring players, but making sure you build a manner in which you run your team. And I think that's one of the reasons in which the Broncos paid Sean Payton what they paid him, brought him in, because they knew they could just hand the keys to this guy and say, if it's football, you do it.
Right. And I don't know how you expect anything else out of the guy that you're paying that much money for.
Right.
I mean,
you run it all, get it done.
Yeah. Just you do it.
And you do it the way you want to do it. And so now this year, it really kind of looks like Sean Payton's team. We talked about it with Chris Thomason last week. Now 60 of the 91 players originally brought into camp, 2/3 essentially, Sean Payton acquisitions since he took over as the head coach and the person who runs the football team. And that may end up being to the point. It won't. The final 53 will not be all players that Sean Payton brought in. Obviously, Pat Surtain's going to make this team. Quinn Miners is going to make this team. We understand that, but it is going to be a very big turnover as Payton spends a lot of this camp. And I think that's part of the way to look at the Caden Sterns situation as well. That's not a Sean Payton guy. He was drafted in 2021. He may not have anything against him, but all Sean Payton knows is I've never seen this guy play a game yet. And I think I would rather go out and see one of the guys on our roster or maybe someone else in free agency that I have seen play that I am more familiar with how they will perform. And that's when we talk about coaches bringing in their guys. It's not necessarily just their buddies or the players they're familiar with, although that does have something to do with it. It definitely has to do with the fact that you may look at the team you took over and said, I am not beholden to these guys because I didn't bring them in. I didn't consider them necessarily fits for my team. And now that we're doing something different, this is about making sure things fit for me. And that, I think, is the part that maybe more than anything in this training camp, that subdued vibe is really just the idea of this is Sean Payton's show and he's running it the way he wants to run it.
Yeah,
he is. We'll talk more about that setup because there are some fascinating things to discuss regarding the roster. One of them regarding the halfback position, if they call it that anymore, which you kind of don't, but total running backs is intriguing, right? Is halfbacks, fullbacks, H-backs, flankers.
Well, the number of them that are under like 5'10".
Yeah.
It is kind of a half.
That's all right. You
back.
You want that little bowling ball. They're hard to tackle.
It's kind of like it's kind of like that picture that was circulating on social media of Simone Biles standing next to Shaq.
Yeah,
7'1" versus what 4'8".
Yeah,
4'9", whatever
if
she is.
Shaq could do a backflip, how long? Or let's just say backward somersault. Let's be fair. How long would it take? Because Biles in like 2 seconds does like 3.
Yes, Shaq's would take a little while. It would also likely register on the Richter scale if he were in fact going to do that. I just think we really missed a golden opportunity on social media to have Simone Biles stand next to Victor Wembanyama because that would have been even crazy.
Should he go to his knee?
Because he is another 5 inches taller than Shaq. I just think that would have been a really great opportunity that so far we've missed out on. I really need somebody to make that happen.
Well, gymnastics wrapped up. Maybe there's time. She just needs to go to a game and photo op.
She could go over there and catch a game. She could. We'll talk about the Olympics later in the show.
Yeah, in a little bit. Want to remind you that part of our training camp coverage is brought to you by our friends at Constitute Health, who are looking to help you optimize your own health in the way that you want to. They're trying to empower patients in their journey, complementing their existing health care and making sure that they optimize their health in the manner they want to. And that's important because some people want to lose weight. Some people would like to get better sleep. Some people would like to have better focus during the day. There's a lot of different things that for each individual, because everyone's different, that you're looking for. And that's what they try to help you with at Constitute. Blood work is quick and easy. There's over 2,000 locations nationwide to work with. You can get it on your own time and turn it into them. With them, then when you get the blood work to them, they do a patient-specific analysis and work with you on a one-to-one basis, giving you complete transparency regarding your health, your concerns, and of course, the goals that you're trying to achieve. You're building the foundation for optimized health and longevity. The cutting-edge medical therapies help your body perform as it should, or as it used to. And there's a lot of different ways you can go about that, whether that's hormone replacement, semaglutide or GLP-1 therapies, peptides, NAD+, all sorts of different therapies that can help you burn fat, assist with weight loss, optimize sleep, better your sleep cycles, enhance your cognitive and executive functions, or if you're working out, build and retain muscle mass, as long as many other personal benefits too, because it's going to be tailored to you. Check them out online at constitutehealth.com. If you mention Mile High Sports, you get $50 off your initial blood work and your consultation. You can also go to milehighsports.com. It's easy. You'll see the link for Constitute. You go ahead and click it. You'll get $50 off there as well. So find out what your body's been trying to tell you via your blood work and go to Constitute Health and optimize your health in the manner that you want to. Check them out at constitutehealth.com. So Nate, going to the halfbacks, the running backs, whichever term.
I'm going to need you to call them running backs. I can't do the halfback thing.
Well, then we'll say the Broncos.
It's confusing.
And that's fair.
I'm an easily confused individual, so that's not really saying much. But halfback, I can't really. It's too close. We were talking about rolling smoke barbecue a minute ago. It's just too close to the term half rack.
Or baby
which,
back.
which just makes me hungry, or I start singing that Chili's song.
Right.
And so if you do halfback, I'm going to be lost.
Okay.
Let's say running back.
Well, say running back, because the Broncos will keep a fullback.
But we might use one on kick return. I don't care. He's still a running back.
Yeah. Michael Burton is expected to stay, obviously. He does play the more traditional fullback role. So can they keep 4 other runners? Javonte Williams has been consistently praised for his weight loss by Sean Payton and looks more explosive, looks dangerous, and looks faster and more agile than he did last year when it felt he was being a little bit rushed back from his surgery that people refer to as an ACL. That's not entirely fair. He tore 3 of the 4 CLs in your knee and leaves it like a spaghetti noodle. So the fact that he was able to play at all last year was remarkable. Now he looks a lot better.
Right.
So, Samaje Perine by Sean Payton has been multiple times in the offseason and in this camp talked about how if there was anybody that might be a 3-down back, he mentioned Perine because Perine can run inside, run outside, pass protect, blitz pickup, catch passes. So obviously Perine, a player that Payton brought in as a free agent, someone that he feels pretty good about, and certainly has the biggest body of work. Audric Estime, a player they loved and drafted. Payton has talked about how yards after contact, he led all of FBS college football in yards after contact. We know about the touchdowns. He clearly has a short yardage role at bare minimum carved out for Estime in his head already. And you have Jaleel McLaughlin as a change of pace guy, and maybe in the mix potentially as your kick returner. I'm thinking that all 4 of these guys make it because they all have different jobs.
And I think that here's the other reason why I think that all of them make it. If we look historically at kick return, okay, frequently prior to the change in the rules, your kick returner was oftentimes either a DB or a wide receiver.
Right.
Okay.
Or a deep backup runner.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was frequently
cornerback, wide receiver.
A cornerback or a wide receiver, because what it was you wanted the top end speed, and you weren't necessarily worried about size.
And you, quite frankly, were putting someone out there that if they got injured, it wasn't your starter.
Correct, except when the teams were really
Not
stupid.
really supposed to say that out loud.
Except when they were really stupid and put Wes Welker out there, but that's a different story. So now, with the change in the rules where it starts to feel a little bit more like a running play, if you think about how the teams line up.
It's a long block running play.
It's a long blocked running play. Then the idea of someone like Estime or like McLaughlin or whatever may wind up being of value to you. And so instead of your special teams positions being that extra wide out, or that it may wind up being that you're in more value, at least with the way the Broncos have the roster constructed as it stands here at camp, in having that running back in that position as opposed to a deep DB or a deep wide receiver, is my point. And so that's why I think that if you were looking at, 4 running backs and a fullback, maybe a couple of years ago, I might not have bought into that idea, but based on how things are going with the new kickoff rules, I think you have to be able to buy into that. Look, this coaching staff, this team really likes Estime. All right. And rightfully so. Now, there are a couple of things. If you go back and look at some of the scouting reports on Estime prior to the draft, okay, couple of things that you have to look at with him. His speed exists once he has had the runway.
Right.
Okay. So he does not jump to the hole with that speed.
It's what they call long speed.
He picks up the speed. Correct. He picks up the speed as he gets to the second and the third level. Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things that I am very curious to see with Estime in the preseason contests, and so as we get to like Friday, we talk about this again when it's like, what do you want to look for on Sunday in the game against the Colts? What I would tell you is one of the key things I'm looking for with Estime is the offensive line capable of giving him the hole to be able to reach what his potential is? Because if you look at the scouting reports, and I know the coaching staff is trying desperately to work with him on this, but if you look at the scouting reports, he was not a guy that popped to the hole. Like, he wasn't already at his top speed by the time he hit the line of scrimmage.
He's not a burst guy.
Correct. And some backs are, right? He's not.
McLaughlin is.
He is a guy whose burst is afterwards. Mm-hmm. So he's got to get through that first level before he's actually going to start to hit that second, third, or fourth gear in terms of what his speed is. Part of the reason I bring that up, Shawn, is because based on the idea that he needs to be able to hit his top speed with some help, with some space.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't I just describe the kickoff rule?
Yes. And
I'm just saying.
And I actually, as soon as you mentioned that, I thought that was interesting because maybe one of the ways to change things with kickoff has to do more with power than speed. Maybe that is valuable. A guy that could break a tackle or two may end up being valuable on that. We don't know what it looks like.
As much as you would like to be able to have, we just did the Hall of Fame. As much as you would love to have Devin Hester, right? He's not on this roster.
It's not on anybody's roster, but the whole league.
As much as you want to be able to say, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be able to break one? Wouldn't you much rather be able to say, hey, our average starting position on a kickoff is the 32.
Right.
I'm making up a number now.
5 yards further because we have a power guy that he's not going to break it, but he'll give you an extra 5.
But he's going to get me what I need.
And you know what? If you were to ask coaches that sort of thing, they would take it every time because that's the long game. When you have X number of possessions, if you start little 5 yards fast.
And what do you want to do? What do you want to do with a rookie quarterback? You want to make sure that his ass isn't on the goal line.
Preferably.
Right? You want to make sure
that
he want to make sure that you're giving him some room.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about these running backs and we talk about what happens with the new kickoff rule, that's why I bring up that particular trait of Audric Estime. Is because he is a guy, again, I'm going off of scouting reports, but they're scouting reports from people that I trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they talk about he's got great speed, but it's not the burst. It is the moment he gets through the line. That is why the yards after contact, the yards past the line of scrimmage was such a big
he's
step
strong
for
enough
him
to break one.
Yes.
And then he picks up the speed. You think of the greatest wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, and I'm not going to make the direct comparison, but Jerry Rice's knock was not very fast.
Yeah.
But we didn't really scout the way we scout now. Jerry Rice didn't get caught from behind an awful lot. No. Turns out that once he actually got by his guy,
once he was
the speed kicked in, and now you're not catching him anymore.
Yeah. Good night, Irene.
So there are ways to do that. For the Broncos, on top of that, in the early going, Estime may not even need that. They may be looking at him as a goal line specialist, in which he was obviously terrific at Notre Dame, and that gives him a different way of getting on the field too. My question with that is, I'm going to go back a couple years to when Julius Thomas played on the Broncos.
Yes.
Because Julius Thomas could not block effectively. Part of the problem is when Julius Thomas came on the field, you knew the Broncos were passing.
Correct.
If you know that, for example, Javonte Williams is not particularly good in blitz pickup. Neither is Jaleel McLaughlin.
Neither is McLaughlin.
But they're on. Are you then looking at it and say we know what that might be? If P. Ryan is on the field, do you start making a presumption that it's going to be a pass, P. Ryan or McLaughlin? If Estime is in there, you're going to assume it's going to be between the tackles. Do these guys sort of specialists right now at this moment make it harder for the Broncos to have to disguise their play? Or is there enough ability there that they can still do it? And perhaps you look at an Estime and you put him on, they assume it's going to be short yardage, and you're not doing that at all.
So here's part of why I say that I think you can, particularly inside the 10-yard line. So true deep red zone running plays.
Where the Broncos, by the way, were abysmal
in
the last couple of years.
But part of the reason that I think you might still be able to keep some teams honest is I believe in the type of play calling and formations that will involve Burton. And that is why I think that you may actually be able, whether it is P. Ryan or Estime or Javonte Williams, that the utilization of that fullback using someone like Michael Burton can cause a defense to pause for a second, because we know Burton can get into the gap and open up a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he can open up a spot for any of those guys.
And he can also catch.
And he also can pick up that extra lineman if necessary to give a guy like P. Ryan the opportunity to swing out to the outside of the pocket and potentially be a threat to take just a little 3-yard, to the right dump off, and then hopefully utilize his wheels to get to the outside and keep somebody like a defensive end or a linebacker that's trying to cover him honest. So it's the part that when we talk about Burton in particular that I think has an echo effect on these running backs. The ability to be able to have that type of a fullback, which we know they want to be able to do, and good for them because they should. I think it's a smart thing to do. I think it also provides a little bit of extra security, if you will, to Bo Nix. Because if all of a sudden you have to audible and you've got Burton out there on the field, you've added that extra blocking ability because of the fact that the dude's 5'11", 240.
And if you need to, you can dump it off to him as well.
You can.
The thing you're bringing up, I think, is one of the things the Broncos, especially.
I mean, he's not Mike Allstott, but he's still good.
No, he had one catch last year. It was for a 2-point conversion. They don't throw to him a lot, but he has the ability. But what you're bringing up is something I've wanted to see the Broncos do for a while, and this running back room is one of the examples of why. And the bright side is Sean Payton has done it before. Obviously, we've seen it. 2 running back sets. If you put in, let's say, Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, or Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine, or Perine and McLaughlin, or Estime and Perine.
Yeah, roll the dice.
Perine was a lead blocker for Joe Mixon in Cincinnati at times and was very effective. Now, all of a sudden, you really can deceive because you have multiple running backs that you trust, and you could go to either of them or neither of them and max protect, depending on what you want to do. And I think Peyton is clever enough to take advantage of that if he wants to. And the fact that he keeps Burton tells me he's not afraid of lining up with 2 running backs on the field.
And one last thought here before we put a bow on it. The other advantage that you have if you start doing some of these things that we're talking about from the running game, whether we are talking about a standard I formation with a fullback, whether we're talking about splitting guys behind Nix, whether we're talking about starting out split and then putting somebody in motion, whatever it is that you're doing, do not underestimate the value on this team of being able to milk clock and keep the opposing offense off the field. Think about the teams that you are going to face and the quarterbacks you are going to face and some of, frankly, the high-powered offense.
And you're not going to stop them. So you want to, that's
Correct.
a great point. You want to minimize the number of drives they get.
And so if we're talking about a front seven that has looked good, that looked good on Saturday with the scrimmage, and that we believe has some talent, not the least of which is, our current cover athlete, Alex Singleton. Don't underestimate the idea of being able to get creative with the running game to take some pressure off of Bo Nix and to give your defense the opportunity to sit on the sideline for a minute and recharge. That is something this team is going to need to do if they want to be able to keep games within 2 scores. They're going to need to give this defense a damn break from time to time. And that is going to be the case whether we're talking about a matchup against the Chiefs or we are talking about a matchup with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I don't care what it is. You are going to need to make sure that by the time you are in the late 3rd quarter and early to middle part of the 4th quarter, that your defense is not completely and utterly spent.
We will see how it looks when the preseason starts on Sunday. But I think what you're talking about is right. I think this team, we're talking about the quarterbacks all the time. This is going to be a power run team.
I sure hope so.
And
fun to watch.
Power run and play action. I think that's the expectation. I think that's what Sean Payton wants to build. I think one of the best things you can do in the NFL is if you can't match what all the best teams are doing, you do something different and make them alter to you. They can't match the Chiefs, the Bengals.
They can't. So you've got to throw them something different.
Right. Give them something different. And I think that's what the Broncos are looking to do.
You need to be able to do that. I will say this. We've been talking about defense. We've been talking about nothing but defense. One of our great sponsors of being out here at training camp. I want you to get on the offensive side of things. And that is when we're talking, see what I did there? And that is when we're talking about what happens when it is time to buy or sell a home. Now, this could be your primary home. This could be an investment property that you're looking for. This could be downsizing because the kids have left for college and you don't need all the space anymore. Maybe you're tired of mowing the yard. I know that I am. I am tired of mowing. And that means I need to either find someone to mow for me or eventually get to the point where I can downsize so that I don't have to worry about mowing anymore. And I can just be in a nice little spot where somebody either does it for me or I don't have to worry about that at all. Whatever your motivation is, you need to make sure you're talking to our friends at Key Real Estate Group. That is Dave and Mark. And look, we're talking about a couple of guys in a real estate office that has been in the same offices for 25 years. So when we talk about how crazy the Denver market can be, understand that when you're talking about a team that has been right where they are for more than 2.5 decades, that is all you need to know to understand that they know the local market. So if we're buying, if we're selling, if we're looking at an investment property, or if you just want to find somebody that you can have a conversation with to get a feel for what the market is like in your particular suburb, your neighborhood, whatever that is, our guys are here to be able to help, and that is Dave and Mark. It's really easy to find them. You can get online, obviously, at keyrealestategroup.com. keyrealestategroup.com, or you can give them a shout at 720-900-LIST, L-I-S-T, 720-900-LIST, and get yourself on the offensive. Do not wait to understand what the market is going to do. Reach out and get that knowledge for yourself with our guys that know this market inside and out. keyrealestategroup.com, 720-900-LIST, and when you talk to them, tell them Shawn and Nate sent you.
Obviously, big weekend over in Paris. A lot of the marquee events went off, and tremendous. I'll admit it. I am a total Olympic junkie. I paid for the big package on Peacock. I paid for the whole thing so I can zip through. I can watch whatever random sport and zip through all the commercials. And you were talking about that.
Let's get to look. The highlight,
weird sports.
The highlight, the damn highlight. I was glued. So was my daughter last night. I was glued. It was the gold medal match between China and Chinese Taipei in doubles badminton, and those dudes are nuts. I want to know what kind of incredible energy drink these guys are pounding on a consistent basis to be out there as hyper as they are with the little racket and the shuttlecock, because they're jumping and they're firing it down and they're trying to body slam the damn badminton shuttlecock. They want that thing to embed in your eye socket if you are on the other side of the net. They come in
at 125 plus.
But then the best part is because it's the little, badminton birdie.
Probably not going to hurt you.
Because it's the little birdie, although shuttlecock is more fun to say.
And more official.
The little birdie thing that comes, they slam it, but then because of how it's built, it's it goes into slow motion.
Yeah.
It's it starts out really fast and then it kind of goes into slow motion. But this was exciting to be able to watch. And I've always found the badminton to be highly entertaining. I think the only thing that's missing is the old school women's tennis.
God, there's no time to do it. You can't even breathe. Make the noise.
All that kind of thing.
I wonder if you got hit by that. You're saying, if you hit you right in the fourth, would it be
it's going to leave a welt?
It would, but it would be like the end of Austin Powers, where he's who throws a shoe? Really? I mean, if it like that, you're sort of annoyed.
So mine
that stung a little bit.
There's a few that I really enjoy. I oddly enough really enjoy the rowing events as well.
The ones where they just go straight?
Yeah. I like
that. Is the exact opposite of the badminton.
It actually is, but I also I find it fascinating.
The Nate Zen of just watching them go in a straight line.
The rowing eights, which I watched over the weekend. I don't know. There's just something about that teamwork, and then the coxswain, another fun word to say.
This is why Nate likes it. He's trying to come up with words you can say
sitting up in the front, who's got the little headset. He's got a headset like you and I do, and so he's up there in the front. He's a little dude. He's kind of like Brandon Cristal. He's a little dude who sits there in the boat and then just yells for when these guys are supposed to do the strokes. But his job is to decide when they're going to punch it and when they're going to just chill.
Right.
And so
nice little pace.
It's kind of like when they're doing the distance running, right? 1,500, 3,000, it's 5,000.
Yeah, it looks like they're jogging, and then they are definitely not jogging.
Except you're not deciding in your own brain when you're going to do it. There is a little dude in the front telling you what to do. And he's got to be somewhat small because obviously you don't want to add a whole lot of weight.
So could we do that?
Ryan Harris, as svelte and good looking as that man is, he doesn't have a career doing this because he's too big. He weighs too much. Right?
Could we do that? Because all we have to do is just do what they say, right?
Well,
just do what he says.
Yeah, except I do not have the upper body strength to do any of those kinds of maneuvers.
Yeah, that
you got to have
matters.
We're talking about strong.
Yeah.
You got to have the lat pull going on.
Yeah,
you got to have where's Dempsey? Dempsey could do it. Dempsey's got the soul.
I don't actually know where is my
don't ask me.
I don't even know what that is. Yeah,
but Dempsey could do it. So my two from this weekend that I spent some time watching last night was doubles badminton on the gold medal match, China and Chinese Taipei.
All right. Probably
and then the rowing eights, which again I just found a little bit cathartic, I guess you could say. I will also say part of the reason that I found the interest that I did, if you have not seen the movie The Boys in the Boat, go see it. You will love this movie.
If you like rowing.
If you like the rowing, it's a true story.
Okay.
It's a true story, and it's a fantastic story, by the way.
Sports and streaming options from Nate Lundy. That's why
that's
why we have him.
The boys
I've
and the
started
boat.
to like kayak cross. I don't know if you ever saw like the ones they had earlier where they have some manufactured river and they went one at a time and they're trying to navigate through all these like a slalom and skiing, but they have to go like backwards up the river. But then add the new one with kayak cross. It's 4 of them and they're just racing to the bottom and they dump them out of a ramp. They're like 10 feet above the river and they just drop this thing and they slide down right into the water and everyone pops out of the water. And then there appears to be literally like no rules except you can't like hit a guy in the face with an oar. But you can ram into each other's boats. You can like, it's crazy.
It's a little bit of the rules in terms of the phicality of hockey. There are certain things you can't do, but for the most part, you can body check and all
definitely
that.
Like you check your kayak into them and they're going down at once. It's madness. It's kind of that's a cool sport too that you're not going to get to see a lot on TV. But if you're doing the streaming thing, like check it out. You'll be very entertained.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool sports.
On a much more, I guess you could say, mainstream note.
Yes.
Obviously, the 100-meter final yesterday was epic. One of the most amazing things that I have ever seen in terms of human athletic performance. If you have not seen it, it is on SportsCenter's Instagram account.
Yeah, because it's only 9.7 seconds.
Well, but on their account, they have an aerial shot from behind the finish line, right? So the runners are coming toward you.
Right.
Okay. And what they did was basically snapped a photo every second.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a photo, it's a still, and then they overlaid it so that you can see it. And you will understand how close this was. Because if you rewind 8 years, it wasn't ever that close because Usain Bolt was that much better than everybody else.
Right.
He would get out ahead of the pack because he was that damn fast. That was not the case yesterday.
Yeah.
So if you look at this photo, it just goes, and you can see how close they were. And if you haven't seen some of the replays and some of the breakdowns that they were able to do on NBC, you don't understand the fact that Noah Lyles was in last place 40 meters into that race.
Yeah.
Last place.
And the only reason he won.
He was in 3rd place or 4th place at the 60-meter mark. And the reason that he was able to pull it off is because he timed
his head dip better than Thompson of Jamaica.
He timed his head dip. Remember, it's the torso. Mm-hmm. It is when your torso crosses the line. And he did it, and he timed it perfectly to be able to win by 5 1,000ths of a second.
Yeah. Fred Curley finishes 3rd. Thompson of Jamaica finishes with the silver. Curley finishes 3rd in his 3rd Olympics. Simbine of South Africa ends up finishing 4th. But get this. So this was so close. Lyles and Thompson, they had to break it down to the 5,000ths.
Yes.
Curley was 200ths behind the 2 gold, the 2 top finishers, 200ths for the bronze. Simbine was 300ths of a second, no medal. And when you look at it in the photo finish, all these guys are within 6 inches of each other.
Well, the whole
simultaneously.
Thing from first,
it was a remarkable run.
The whole thing from 1st to 8th was what? Was it 0.3? 0.4? What was it?
0.22.
0.22 total. Less than a quarter of a second.
No, I take that back. Actually, it would be 0.18.
Okay, 0.18.
Fewer than 0.2 of a second for everybody.
These guys in total were less than 0.2 of a second behind.
Just a giant 8-man cross the line simultaneously.
Well, and that's why I'm telling you, go see the photo that SportsCenter posted on their Instagram account, just at SportsCenter. It's awesome. They posted it yesterday afternoon, so you might have to scroll back and find it. But they did the photos a second apart, and then they overlaid all of them. And it was unbelievable to watch how just basically in a straight line, all 8 of those guys were for the entire race.
I mean, what a run. I mean, that's just incredible.
It was a lot of fun.
Other great thing, Katie Ledecky wins her 4th. Well, she's won 9 career gold medals, but this is the one that still shocks me. It's her 4th straight in the 800 free. Well, for Olympics, that'd be 2024, 2020, 2016, 2012. In 2012, when she won it the first time, She was 15.
Correct.
From 15 to 27, she wins all of them. And we had Eric Goodman on talk about this last week a little bit. He's a big swimming fan himself. One of the things about Ledecky that's remarkable is Ledecky is one at the 1500, certainly a distance in which she dominates. She won this one. No one else was on your TV screen. The 800. She's one at the 400. She's one at the 200, which classifies as a sprint. Think about that. In track and field, the idea you would be a sprinter and a distance runner. Ledecky is a swimmer, essentially unparalleled, 14 overall medals, 9 career golds at this point. That's a remarkable performance. Simone Biles, coming back from the issues that she had in the previous Olympics, takes care of her mental health, makes a great statement towards that, and then doubles down, proving that was the right thing to do with the gold medal. She's won 3 gold in Paris, 7 career in hers. And that maybe wasn't even the best moment. Rebecca Andrade of Brazil, who wins the floor exercise. Biles does a slip up. Andrade wins the floor exercise. Andrade on Brazil, if you hadn't really seen that, Brazil Olympic teams never really fielded significant history in gymnastics. Andrade's leotard was literally designed by a teammate because Brazil, basically, the gymnastics team is essentially self-funded to even get to the Olympics. She wins the gold medal, and Simone Biles and Jordan Childs of the U.S. finished second and third. The respect that they have for Andrade get to the point where on the medal ceremony, Biles and Childs agreed that they would basically dip and bow to Andrade in the middle while holding her hand, showing how incredible that particular accomplishment is. You think of the entire mechanism behind United States gymnastics for generations. And Brazil is basically just doing it on a shoestring budget, and you win that gold. That's a stunning performance, and in a kind of an equivalent with Sha'Carri Richardson. The expectation was to win gold. She doesn't. Julian Alfred wins the gold from St. Lucia. That's their first medal in the Olympics ever, and they win the fastest sprinter. I mean, some of the countries pulling off these remarkable achievements, given virtually no budget compared to the big programs in the U.S. and China.
That's the Philippines.
It's remarkable.
That's Carlos Yulo, who, if you're not familiar, so Carlos Yulo from the Philippines. The Philippines had never won a gold medal in a men's event. He was the first man to do it.
Right.
And he did it on the floor exercise, had an absolutely spectacular performance, and winds up winning gold. And then backs it up by yesterday winning gold on the vault. His country's never done it before, and he did it twice.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it was amazing to watch and to see the success that these other countries are having. And I think it's spectacular. Carlos Yulo was a lot of fun to watch. His first vault was, I mean, like I'm not a gymnastics analyst, obviously, but I do know what I saw was one of the best vaults I'd ever seen. It was wild. These guys are just fun to watch.
Yeah, and the not to sound like an X Games announcer, but the progression of the sport when you see this every 4 years about how much better, like the whole world gets. We're talking about that 100 meter where 8 guys basically finish simultaneously. I mean that it's remarkable to see. And even though the International Olympic Committee is certainly worthy of a tremendous amount of disdain, the Olympic movement
Repeated
itself.
disdain.
With the athletes and what the athletes themselves manage to accomplish, make it worthwhile every single time. It's remarkable.
Yeah, really enjoyed the competition over the weekend. Had a good time watching it. I'm bored of Team USA in basketball.
I am too. I want a Serbia-USA final so bad.
The reason that I have been enjoying it
when medal round rolls around.
Yeah, the reason I've been enjoying it is because I'm taking the time to watch the stuff that I don't get to watch otherwise.
Yep. Exactly.
I've seen LeBron and Ant and Steph, and I've seen all these guys play basketball. I don't like meh. I'm sorry, it probably makes me very un-American.
But that's how I feel with basketball and soccer. I'm like, let me know when there's a medal at stake.
I did not watch. Like, I'm a huge golf fan.
I'm a tennis fan. I didn't watch any of it.
I didn't watch anything that Scheffler did.
I didn't watch golf.
I didn't watch anything that he did. And again, it's not because I'm not impressed by what Scheffler did, because if you go back and look at the 62 that he shot and the 29 that he did on the back 9, it was freaking amazing.
Yeah,
it was. But I can watch Scotty Scheffler basically every other week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for
this is
every single year. I take my time to watch the stuff that I don't get to watch otherwise.
Yep.
Like, I will tell you this. I cannot wait for diving to get underway now that swimming is finished. Now, part of the reason I say that is because if you go back to when I was a teenager, I dove. I did diving. and I could never. I was never very good. And I learned a couple of little tricks, and then that was about it. But I did diving for a while. And so I find it fascinating because I watch these people do stuff that I tried.
Yeah.
And never came close to. Okay. Like, yay, me and my, and my front 1.5, which don't ask me to do now.
More than I can do.
Which don't ask me to do now, because otherwise I'd be entered into that belly flop competition that happens at Waterworld every year. But like, those are the things that I look forward to. I don't need to watch Team USA, men's or women's for that matter.
Yeah.
I don't need to watch Scotty Scheffler. What I will watch is things like high jump. And I'll love the fact that we're watching a gold medalist from Ukraine.
Like jump over this tent that we're in.
Yeah. Like gold
Just
medalist
run up and jump over it.
A gold medalist from Ukraine, when you think about everything that is going on in her country right now, right? Like stuff like that. That's what gets me. And then last, but certainly not least, can we please acknowledge that in 2024, exactly what we needed was Snoop, Martha, and Flava Flav?
Sounds about right.
We didn't know we needed it, but damn it, we needed it. We needed Snoop and Martha watching dressage, and we needed Flava Flav coming to the rescue of the women's U.S. water polo team.
Right.
That's what we needed. Forget the rest of this. Forget whether or not Caitlin Clark should have been on the roster for the women or not. We needed those three across our televisions for 16 days.
Didn't hurt to have Noah Lyles, Katie Ledecky, and Simone Biles as well. Obviously, the Olympics will roll on, and it will be a tremendous amount of fun. And maybe you're looking to get fit. Maybe you're thinking of that rowing. Maybe you want to get those lats in shape. Well, if you're looking for the perfect place to work, play, exercise, and socialize, well, then you look no further than the Denver Athletic Club, right in the heart of downtown Denver. And as a DAC member, you'll enjoy top-notch amenities like a full fitness center, but licensed childcare center, spa, massage, Pilates, a golf simulator, and more. But what truly sets the DAC apart is that vibrant community. It's been at the heart of Denver for more than a century, and that's because the member-owned club is all about you. There are year-round social events, co-working, dining, fun for the whole family. The DAC, the Denver Athletic Club, is truly a club for your whole life. And now, for a limited time, new members will pay no dollars, nothing, zero, zilch, nada in initiation fees. No initiation fees at the Denver Athletic Club. If you ever have wanted to try it, now is the time. Go check them out. Join the DAC today. Nate, we are done with practice here. Of course, the berm is virtually clear. They're cleaning up some of the
People got to go shower.
Yeah, and that to a certain extent may include you, me, and Anilo Piro, and Cody Roark, and Danny Bailey, because it's it's
kind of need to bring one of those camping showers out here that holds like the bag of water,
just a bucket, the distilled water, and then we just kind of
and then you could just like just hose yourself down.
Yeah,
like in the category of TMI, like I keep a thing of deodorant in my backpack that I bring out here because I
do too.
You just, if you're out here for too long, like today's not terrible because there's actually a breeze.
I respect that.
But it's like, man, if all of a sudden, you're kicking back and you're having a conversation with one of the players as they come off the field and you're like, I smell like you smell.
Right.
And yet I wasn't practicing.
Yeah, didn't do those things. We sat in a chair.
Exactly.
So you definitely don't want that to necessarily show. But now for the Broncos' first game week of the season, and I guess we're going to report on it, by the way. The fittest Denver Bronco might be David Shaw, now in the front office for the Broncos, who at the end of practice literally just walks the fields in giant loops. At one point last week, I actually turned to Danny Bailey and wondered if I was in the Matrix, if it was deja vu, if it was the same cat that came across, because just a couple minutes after David Shaw came by, he came by again from the same direction, and I wonder if maybe the heat had fried my brain a little bit.
Yeah,
but no, Shaw's got the hoodie on, getting the sweat on, just lapping, just keeps lapping the field literally over and over and over again. So full marks. I don't even want to do that once out in this heat. But,
not in this heat, I don't. But not in this heat, I don't. But if you'd had a few adult beverages the night before and you were trying to sweat it out, might not be a bad workout.
This would work. And if you're doing that tomorrow, coming out to Broncos camp, again, expect the heat, expect the sun, but expect this to start looking a little bit more like a traditional practice week prior to a game. It's not as if they're heavily scouting the Colts. We know the Broncos aren't going to divulge any secrets. They're not going to, they're going to run a full vanilla offense and the regular stuff that everyone does in the preseason. But this is now an opportunity for some of these players to give their statement that they should either start the game or play significant minutes with the twos, because with only 3 preseason games, if you can't get on the field at all, remember there are 91 players, the snap count at the end of the game might be the most telling thing, and players want to carve that out. So I think this week, as the week goes along, you'll start seeing a little more of you mentioned it at the Olympics, the jogging and the 1500, and then you start getting the sprint. For a lot of these players, maybe not the established veterans, the sprint kind of starts now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to keep in mind is it's not just about this coaching staff. It's about showing some things on the field so that if you are a part of the cuts, you have the potential of being either picked up by another team or to make your case for practice squad. Let's remember, that's still a payday.
Yep, it is.
I mean, it's not what everybody might hope for. You're not pulling Quinn Minor's money, but you're still getting a paycheck and you're still getting an opportunity. And so the opportunity to be out there on the field over the course of Sunday in Indianapolis is also about, it's not just about trying to show Coach Payton and the staff what you can do. It's also about making sure that there are some things that others in the league might see, so that if they are a team, like let's say you're a deeper D lineman, so that if there is a team that goes, man, we just lost our 3rd string guy, or we just lost our 2nd string guy, whatever it is,
right?
And you can say, man, you know what, he's running that same kind of scheme that we want to run, that he's running with Denver right now. And if Denver cuts him, let's go grab him. Right. I mean, there's just little things like that you've got a proving ground that goes above and beyond just these coaches.
That's a really good point.
Especially when you're fringe, when you're super fringe as a player, when you can probably have an honest discussion with yourself that you're not going to make the 53. What you want is the practice squad. Right. What you want is to make sure that you are asked to come back after everything's done.
Practice squad actually does, when you talk about, you're not making Quinn Minor's money, but if you has a minimum of $9,200 a week, the average ends up being about $12,000 a week if you've had any NFL experience, and if you've had 2 seasons, it jumps to $16,000 a week. So it's put it this way: if you still want to play football, it's a good job. You're making money, and then the longer you're with the team, better chance you have to maybe take one of those regular roles.
And you're just continuing to take advantage right now of where you are with your age, with your athletic ability, things like that, to be able to collect that paycheck before you turn to chapter 2 of your career.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that there's going to be a lot of that coming out this week. The quarterbacks will continue to go, but I think watching the running backs will be interesting as we broke all that down, how that shakes out. Keep an eye, obviously, on the Denver defensive backfield. Brandon Jones, starting safety, still out. Moving on from Caden Sterns at some point today, whether by trade or release. So the Broncos defensive backfield is interesting. Levi Wallace, opposite of Pat Surtain, out. Pat Surtain Saturday, a rest day, because you don't need Pat Surtain in the scrimmage, anything happening, because you kind of know he's got a spot there. And that would be what I'd watch. When you keep an eye tomorrow on the quarterbacks, remember that the defensive backfield, as good as the front 7 has looked, and you brought that up, the defensive backfield is now a bit of a mixed bag. They like the talent that's back there. They like Riley Moss. They still have good feelings about Damari Mathis. They feel good about Jaquan McMillan. Levi Wallace gets hurt on Saturday. Hopefully that isn't serious. The hamstring, an issue for him like it was with Brandon Jones. But that's something I'm going to keep an eye out for. The Broncos, especially Shawn Payton, have really made an effort to talk up Riley Moss a lot. And I guess I'll bring this up just a smidge before we go, if you're going and watching Moss, who may get a chance to get a lot of looks with Wallace out. Moss played at Iowa, where, if you remember Michael Ojemudia for the Denver Broncos, he did as well. Iowa plays almost exclusively zone. They almost never play man-to-man. The reason that Riley Moss wasn't a higher pick, because the athleticism was off the charts. He had a reputation as a ball hawk. But the reason that Riley Moss was not a higher pick than he was is because all of the workouts indicated that man-to-man coverage, press coverage, he's not terribly familiar with it. Some of his big plays that made the highlights at Iowa, they have the opportunity to kind of jump routes because he's in zone coverage, not man-to-man. Picking that up has seemed to be a little bit more of a problem than I'm sure Moss and the Broncos have hoped. But if they want to get more out of Riley Moss has to be able to do more than ball hockey. He has to be able to use more than that speed. You've got to be able to be on a guy's hip and stay there. Thus far, that's still been a challenge for Moss, and one of the reasons that he hasn't been able to ascend. And I think he'll get plenty of looks tomorrow at camp. He'll be one of the guys I'm paying attention
Yeah,
to.
you're going to continue to see a lot of these guys because they do have so many questions in the secondary. I mean, obviously, the move with Sterns that we found out about this morning adds more questions.
Although
right?
it indicates the Broncos feel at least reasonably comfortable with their depth, or that they could fill it.
Yeah, yes. I think that's the indicator that they have, either that they are feeling good about positionally what they have on the field right here in front of us, or they have sort of taken the temperature and looked around at some other places and been able to say, hey, if the Texans cut this guy, we could jump in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I mean, who knows?
They could be on the text chain you're talking about with Caden Sterns.
I'm telling you, I don't know why.
You'll just hear that one of these guys, we might cut this guy.
How do you not just have like a group chat or like a Slack room? Like, how do you not have that?
Maybe they do, but I suspect it's all about finding tea times.
Of course it is. Hey guys,
that's where the business actually gets.
You guys need to check out this course that I just played, and yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, Shawn, as you and I sit here and we get ready to wrap up, I'm looking across the way toward the main building. So, not the field house, but the main building of Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. And the media is all gathered around. Do you think anything of any note is being said
at this stage? No,
I'm just wondering.
No,
because sometimes I feel like you could just, like, if you're James Palmer of the NFL Network, best hair in the business, by the way. If you're James, couldn't you just like beat traffic and go get some lunch? Like, what's going to happen that's going to get said over there that really matters?
It's still all, if you remember the movie Bull Durham, it's still all that way. We got to work on your cliches. We're going to take it one day at a time and
write it down.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's kind of where it is at this stage. Sean Payton is not going to give any particular information regarding, the upcoming depth chart for this game or anything like that. That'll come out basically when they feel like it. And as Cody Roark said at the beginning of the program, and if you missed any part of it, you can always, if you're on YouTube, grab that little slider and move all the way back and check it out. But he's right. Expect the depth chart when it comes out to say Jared Stidham or Bo Nix as QB1. It won't be a QB even one. It'll just be,
if they do another one of those. If they do another one of those,
it'll be at half the positions.
So I'm going to be so annoyed.
It'll be at half the positions. They'll have
two dudes
as minimally as you can make it. You do the
obnoxious.
least you can do to try to give stuff away, obviously, because you don't want anybody getting an
But
idea.
what are you giving away? That's what I keep coming back to.
Oddly, who you might cut. But then again, they said this morning, start with the show saying we're going to cut Caden Sterns.
Yeah, whatever. Danny's doing the finger wave thing, which means we have to stop talking now.
Yes, because it's hot and practice is over and we're looking at an empty field.
And Danny's tired. And Danny's tired of us.
Yeah, so
it's already,
and it's only Monday.
This is the 7th time already that he has had to do this with us.
Oh wow!
And
okay.
I think he's kind of over it.
Okay.
I just
kind of through the halfway point.
We are getting there. We are getting there. That is true. We are progressing our way through camp. Are we learning anything?
Yeah.
I think we are. I think we are a little bit. But I keep coming back to it. Folks, understand that this is a long ramp. This is going to take a while.
Yeah.
Get excited about
2026.
Get excited about 2026 and maybe a touch of 2025. Especially if, as I believe, that when we get to next April, this team will be picking in the top 7. And if that is the case, there's nothing wrong with that, because all you're going to do is keep bringing in young talent that this coaching staff can develop and make into a team that is ready in 2026.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly the plan.
And by the way, thanks to the Broncos for actually, I know this is kind of like Nick Saban having a press conference here with my product placement, but my thanks to the Broncos media for giving our media staff for giving us some Gatorade today, because holy cow, has it been nice.
Nate needs the electrolytes, so we'll let him take care of that.
I need caffeine. I need electrolytes. I need Wilson Contreras to go over 1.5 total bases this afternoon against who is it? The Mets? Are they playing the Mets? Who's St. Louis playing? It's a makeup game. Why are they playing the Cubs again? Yeah, I know it's a makeup
Nobody
game
knows.
for May. I just need Contreras to go off.
Okay.
They're playing the Mets, right?
Yep.
How are you a Mets fan and you don't know the answer to that question? All Anilo cares about is that the Mets are going to be at Coors tomorrow, and he doesn't care. I knew it was the damn Mets. Wake up, Anilo.
The heat's
Come
getting
on.
to everybody. Thanks so much to Cody Roark for joining us. Anilo Piro dropped in as well. You missed any of the show. You can catch it on demand as you'd like. Nate Lundy on my left, and Danny Bailey is the guy that makes everything
Cody
work.
Roark, by the way, could do the rowing.
Cody could do the rowing.
Cody could do the rowing.
Cody could do the rowing. Upper
I
body.
think he could.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he could.
Yep.
He's got, like I said, best in town. You need probably like of the 8s, you're going to need Dempsey.
Probably.
You need that swole dude just crushing the top of the water with that paddle. But I'm thinking we could put Cody in the boat.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
just throwing that out there.
Okay. Well, we will leave it at that today.
You got to cut me off. I'm going to keep talking about random crap.
It is game week for the Broncos. We'll be back at it tomorrow for everyone at Mile High Sports. I'm Shawn Drotar. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time right here.